Switzerland is widely regarded as the most neutral country in the world. They've remained neutral for over 300 years, which begs the question, why? Why has Switzerland remained neutral for so long, and how do they keep it up? Hi, I'm your host, and you're watching this channel. So neutrality has been part of Switzerland's DNA ever since the Swiss Confederacy formed in 1291. But it was until 1814 that Switzerland became truly neutral when the Congress of Vienna made it a permanent state. The Congress of Vienna was a meeting of the great powers of Europe after the Napoleonic Wars to restore stability and order to the continent. They wanted to make sure that nothing like the French Revolution or the Napoleonic Wars would happen again. So they made a lot of changes. They reconfigured national boundaries, reorganized Italy and Germany, and created the Netherlands by taking territory from everyone and giving it to the Dutch. In the process, they also permanently enshrined Switzerland's neutrality into international law, agreeing that Switzerland would be a sovereign, independent, and perpetually neutral state. And there are two main reasons why the great powers agreed to this. First, Switzerland's geography. Switzerland is located right in the middle of Europe, with France, Germany, Italy, and Austria all sharing borders with it. Back in 1814, this made Switzerland valuable as a buffer state between the great powers. For example, if France and Prussia ever went to war, Switzerland would be caught in the middle of it. Having a neutral country in between them would hopefully discourage them from waging war against each other. And because Switzerland was landlocked, it wasn't really useful for any of them to control. But that's not the main reason. The main reason Switzerland's neutrality has endured is because of their militia system. Ever since 1798, every able-bodied Swiss male has been required by law to serve in the military. And even today, Switzerland spends more money on its military as a percentage of GDP than NATO countries like Greece, Norway, and the Netherlands. Now, while their military isn't large, only around 150,000 active soldiers, they have a large pool of trained and motivated individuals to draw from. If you decide to invade Switzerland, you will have to go through every single man in the country who has been trained to fight and defend their homeland. And that brings us into our next point, their economy. Switzerland has one of the strongest economies in Europe, with GDP per capita around $86,000. Their unemployment rate is usually between 2 and 3%, lower than both the US and the EU, and their government budget is consistently in the black. While many countries have struggled with recession and inflation, Switzerland has largely avoided these problems. And this is thanks to their commitment to neutrality. Because they don't participate in wars, they don't have to worry about the costs of war. And because they're a neutral country, people and businesses feel safe storing their money there. In fact, around half of all Swiss banks' assets come from foreign clients, so neutrality has allowed them to build a stable and prosperous economy. Finally, consistent foreign policy. Throughout history, there have only been two real threats to Switzerland's neutrality: Napoleon and Hitler. And both times they played the same card, promising to respect their neutrality if they were allowed to pass through. And both times the Swiss refused. And because they refused, they managed to stay neutral throughout both world wars. However, after World War II, they realized that their policy of trying to stay out of European politics wasn't working. So in 1945, they joined the UN and committed to a policy of universal citizenship, meaning that anyone could become a Swiss citizen through naturalization. This has led to a situation where over half of the Swiss population was actually born outside of Switzerland. So nowadays, Switzerland is a full member of the EU and participates in almost all areas of European integration except defense. All in all, Switzerland's neutrality has managed to survive for over 300 years, thanks to a combination of smart policies, strong economy, and strong military. So why does Switzerland remain neutral? Well, now you know. But what about you? Do you think neutrality is a good policy for Switzerland? Comment below. Also, be sure to follow our social media to get some fun facts about Switzerland every day. That's 1 minute. See you next time.